After 15,000 Uber trips, I've kind of learned to stop looking for the perfect ride, and instead, I'm looking for the perfect moment. Hi, my name is Levi Spires. This is the Tip You in the App Daily Drive podcast. Today's Daily Drive podcast is brought to you by the Gig You app. Now, I don't believe I'm qualified to give you, as an Uber driver, exact advice. The truth is, I don't know you. I don't drive in your city. I don't drive the same car that you drive. I don't drive at the same times. I don't have the same needs. We're all unique. Every situation is unique. But I thought I could at least share with you some of the strategies that I have. And I've come up with 3 strategies that I actually work toward. Which, by the way, shout out to Gig You. It makes the financial calculation of every single ride super easy. And I can focus instead of on the financial aspect of the rides, but focus more on other things that I need to help me make me more money. So for this exercise, I'm going to use 2 data sets. One is when me and my friend Zeke, we sat parked for about 2 hours and we declined 404 rides and took all of that data, put it into a spreadsheet, and you can watch that video somewhere around here. The second thing, though, is I'm going to use some data that I did when I spent a whole week and I tracked every single ride, and I wanted to find out who tipped and who didn't tip. And we're going to use that data. That's 150 rides. So we're talking like 550 some odd rides we're going to look at here. First, let me read some of this data to you. Short trips under 3 miles were my most profitable trips, averaging about $28 an hour in profitability before the tip. And that's well over $2 a mile. Medium length trips around 10 to 12 miles were actually my weakest category, averaging about $18 an hour after expenses, despite sometimes even getting good upfront pay. The trips where passengers were rated 4.95 or higher tipped about twice as often as passengers rated 4.94 or 4.94 or less. And that includes short rides. Longer rides produce the highest average tips, especially airport rides, comfort, reservation, early morning trips, long trips. Those got my best tips. And here's the biggest insight. Profitability and tipping are not always the same thing. My short trips maximize profit and efficiency, while longer trips created better tipping opportunities. So, which trips should I take? I'm going to give you 3 strategies here. Long, medium, and short. That's basically, if I've summed up all of the ways I think about Uber driving, it's a long trip strategy, a medium trip strategy, and a short trip strategy. Let's break it down here. Okay, long trips are big money. If I can get a long trip to an airport, I know I'm going to make my biggest revenue dollar amount. They pay really well. I look for primarily long trips to do 2 things. Number 1, I like early morning reservations from way out in the country to the Syracuse airport. The farther in the country the trip is, the better off it is for me. Because those people, if they're ordering an airport reservation, comfort, they're way out in the middle of nowhere, it's a 4 a.m. pickup, they got to get to the airport, they're highly rated. These are people that rarely use the app and they're worried, will somebody come pick them up? So when a professional driver with a clean car shows up ready, it feels good. And I'm going to get a tip on 99% of these trips. It works out really, really well. I also use long trips to get me to other cities. Now, I live in Syracuse, New York, and there are other pockets of places for me to make money. Auburn, Ithaca, Binghamton, Oswego, you name it. And there's farmland in between those things. So if I can get a long trip between some of those cities, it pays pretty well for me also. And it strategically puts me in another location. However, long trips can be really risky. Number 1, you may not get a tip. So you have to use good judgment on picking the correct trips. Again, typically to and from airports, higher rated passengers, comfort type of rides, odd times at night, those tend to tip more than trips between one apartment complex in Syracuse to an apartment complex in Binghamton, New York by a low rated passenger. And the second thing is with long trips, you have to avoid going to dead zones. So it would be really bad for me to take an airport trip from Syracuse out to the middle of the country, some farmland, and then have to deadhead all the way back. Another example would be taking an airport type of trip from, let's say, Ithaca or Binghamton or Syracuse all the way to New York City, 4 hours away. It's a big revenue dollar amount, but I can't take trips in the city of New York. They ban other Uber drivers. You have to have like a certain license and a certain car to do that. So I have to drive back empty. So no matter how much I made on the way down, I'm going to drive back empty. So with long trips, you have to find ways to avoid deadhead time. Well, that leads me to my second strategy, medium trips. And I think medium trips are very common for most drivers. This is where we get into the world of cherry picking. Medium trips to me mean not necessarily, I'll say a 20-minute plus trip, but it stays within an area, maybe a bigger city. So a medium trip for me would be like going from one side of the city of Syracuse to the other side of the city of Syracuse. They're 15, 20-minute trips. These are really hard trips to take, especially if you're taking them in the middle of the day. Medium trips is a strategy though, and I think this is where I do most of my cherry picking, sitting parked, waiting. In the middle of the day, I'm really trying to avoid long trips out to nowhere, and I'm also trying to avoid really short trips because they don't have a lot of the other benefits to short trips, which I'll get to. Medium trips are where you're sitting parked, hoping to get maybe a little bit of a surge or maybe a good ride from, I think a really high paying trip tends to be to and from car repair shops to the suburbs to some extent. I think those are great trips because those are people that are either dropping their car off or picking their car up, and they don't really use Uber that much and they're appreciative of it. Again, you can see my focus is always on tips and trying to maximize tips if I'm not getting a lot of surges. So cherry picking happens there. And my acceptance rate goes down tremendously when I'm doing the medium trip strategy. Which leads me to the third strategy, short trips. Now, short trips for me have been my bread and butter. The shorter the trip, the better, regardless of how much it pays. I don't even think about the pay. Here's why short trips work really, really well. If it's busy, you're in a bar area or downtown area, or maybe you're at a college campus, you can take a lot of short trips in a very short period of time. If it surges, you stay in the surge zone. You don't take one big surge and leave. It surges, you keep staying in that surge zone, and it gets great and it keeps going. But probably, and I guess you can also say you're pursuing quests or bonuses. I don't always get them, so you never really know. But there are quests and bonuses that maybe at short trips can help you complete. But probably the best part about short trips is that people that tip will tip. People that don't tip, don't tip. So you get more tip opportunities with short trips. A $1 tip on a $4 ride is a huge tip amount. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but if you do 4 trips or 5 trips in an hour, and each one of them tips you $1 or $2, and I end up averaging about $2.50 per trip in tips. You can make a lot of money just off of tips alone on short trips. But there's a way to do it. Obviously, you have to have a clean car. You have to be a professional driver, stuff like that. You have to provide good customer service. But I think the number one factor, and my data proves it, is passenger rating. You have to find high-rated passengers. If you get a passenger that's a 4.8 something, God forbid it says they're a VIP or this passenger rarely cancels because 4.8 something, they never tip. These are regular Uber passengers that are not seeing the benefit of the Uber ride. I think people tip because they're happy that an Uber came and got them, and they're excited about the experience. So they tip. They come from a tipping culture per se. And the way you can find that is other drivers have had good experiences with them. So they rate them higher. And I think like a 4.95, 4.96, 4.97, you're going to get a lot more tips. In fact, my data shows that on short trips, trips under 5 miles, passengers rated 4.95. I did 56 trips. I had a 41% tip rate. And my average tip was $4.12. Now, passengers below rated 4.95, I did 65 of those trips. The tip rate was 20%, only 1 out of 5. And my average tip was $3.46. Now, of course, we all have stories of low-rated passengers that have tipped us. And I've done a lot of 5-star passengers that don't tip. We're only talking about the law of averages. In statistics, you call it the law of large numbers. We start to see a pattern, and that pattern is about 4.95 is that threshold of where you get good tips versus bad tips or no tips. So I have those 3 strategies. Long trips, I do them. Short trips, I do them. Medium trips, I do them. But now let's break it down this way. When do I do them? Because it's not like it's my sole strategy. I do all 3 of these strategies. For example, tomorrow, it'll be a slow day for me. It'll be a Thursday or a Friday. I don't know when I publish this video, but it'll be a slow day for me. So I'm hoping to get a long trip early in the morning, a reservation to the Syracuse airport. And then for the rest of the morning, I'll be basically doing medium trips, trying to cherry pick the best trip I can out of that. And there's a lot of factors, and I'm not going to get into what a cherry is because each one of us, again, has our own unique what a cherry might be. But I'm trying to pick the most profitable trips that kind of keep me in certain zones and tips, of course, tips. There's very rarely surges, though, at that time. Then, maybe on Friday or Saturday, I'm going to focus on short trips. I'm going to get to the downtown city of Syracuse, and I'm not going to leave the downtown city of Syracuse. I'm going to just basically do short trips right around downtown all night. And I might start off early Saturday in the early afternoon to kind of do a couple of medium trips, maybe take people out to dinner or something like that. But as soon as like 9 p.m. hits, I'm going to do short trips only. So these strategies work together to maximize our revenue and our profitability. We make money off of the fare, off of surges, off of bonuses, but we also make money off of tips. So don't shortchange yourself by not finding ways to earn more money in tips. Quite frankly, there's some Uber Eats rides that pay really well in tips if you can find them. I want to push back against the cherry pickers of the world. And I am one. I am a cherry picker. But what I'm saying is this, it's not necessarily that cherry picking is bad. It's this belief that your way of Uber driving, whatever way you choose, is the best way. You know, it's like when you go online and you post on Reddit, look at me, I have a 1% acceptance rate. I'm doing it right. Maybe. But when I'm doing my short trip kind of night and I'm by Binghamton University and I'm taking nothing but short trips, all I care about is the shortest trip possible. And I set my passenger rating at 4.9 and take nothing less than a 4.9. My acceptance rate could be 70%. As long as every trip is like 10, 15 minutes long at the most, I don't care. I just want to go right around that campus all night. So my acceptance rate is going to go up. And I'm going to take a lot of trips. I'm probably going to get close to diamond status because of that. I'm not saying being a diamond driver is better. I'm just saying short trips at that time at night around a college campus works really well. It's a lot better than sitting around that college campus hoping for a cherry, at least in my opinion. I could be wrong. In fact, I know because I know there are drivers in the city of Syracuse where I drive that will tell me time and time again, they make a lot more money than me. So maybe I'm doing it wrong. Maybe I am, but I don't think so. I think I do pretty well sometimes. Well, and it doesn't matter because, I'm happy with it. And I'm sure you're happy with what you're doing. I hope these strategies help you out as much as possible. drivers for 2026, please go take a look at the sponsors of the channel, GigU and Red Tiger. They're great companies. They work really hard for Uber drivers, and they provide a great service and a great product. For 2026, I want you to be safe, healthy, and happy. I want you to drive your way and enjoy that ride. My name is Levi Spires. Be well. Take care. I'm cheering for you. Bye.